Will we hold on to the light or just play until it fades? Will we draw a curtain, cross the sky and count down all our days? Will our veins be filled with sand and our hearts be filled with ache when the desert takes the land and the ground begins?
And we're back with welfare.org.uk with the wonderful Wild Swan with a bit of, hopefully a bit of advice on how to treat some of the coughs and colds that are going around at the moment with all of this lovely changeable spring weather we're having. What wonderful weather for a hosepipe ban, eh, Julie?
Oh, it's fantastic, isn't it? Absolutely. Bloody brilliant. We've got a lake in our garden at the moment where a path should be. It's brilliant.
Throw a few fish in it.
Yeah, thinking about it. The dogs will eat them, probably. But, well, yeah, basically...
Well, we've just touched on a point here. I mean, coughs and colds do tend to accompany these changeable weather conditions that we have. Certainly, you know what I mean, sort of common coughs and colds tend to be more associated with sort of autumn and spring, really, than they do with high winter or high summer, don't they?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's just a changeable weather, I think.
Well, do you think it may be perhaps that people are more often caught out with the wrong clothing in these conditions?
I don't know, because I think I used to get that one when I was a kid. Mum used to say to me, don't go out with your hair wet, you'll get a cold. And I was like, you get a cold from germs, you don't get it from having wet hair.
Well, I'm actually I'm slightly of a differing opinion there, but I'm probably more in the woo-woo realms of things. So we'll stick with colds being caused by germs. I think, but again, would you not agree that you are more likely to come down with a cold if you have been out in inappropriate clothing and the weather has turned on you? Then the stress that puts on the system certainly seems to subdue the autoimmune system, and you tend to have more of these kind of little snotty coughs and colds set in.
Yes, I would. I was just about to say it's the stress that causes the immune system to lower, which lets the nasty little buggers in the first place.
Okay, I mean, certainly something I've worked out in the fields and on doing farm work and stuff in the past, and frequently been caught out in these situations. And certainly one way that you can use to avoid coming down with a cold after having been caught out in foul weather is to make sure that you thoroughly reheat yourself. If you don't have access to a bath, change out of all of your clothing if possible and change into a full set of clean, dry clothing. If necessary, wrap up to essentially overheat, to reheat, to make yourself a little too warm.
And get the kettle on, make yourself a cup of tea.
Get the kettle on, warm yourself from the inside out as well. And if you do have access to a bath and time to have a bath, then essentially immerse yourself right up to the base of the skull in the hottest bath water you can possibly sustain, and remain submerged fully under the water for as long as you can sort of manage it. And that this seems to completely prevent the onset of the symptoms of a cold. I mean, like I say, I don't necessarily believe that colds are caused by germs, but
I think, like a lot of things, there's a lot of theories out there, and probably all of the theories are a little bit true, but we can't just take one and say it's colds. Colds are caused by germs. They're caused by a multitude of things. That's what you have to look at.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, so what would you suggest should you find yourself with a snotty cold?
Well, the first thing I'm going to say now before I start on this is I am not an expert on herbal remedies, but I'm always open to new ideas, and all of the ideas that I'm going to talk about today I have tried and they do work, but they're no means the only ones that are out there, and get out there and find them for yourselves and see what works. But the other thing is, the minute you feel your head going or your cold going or the kids start sniffling, that's when you have to treat it, not 3 days later when you can't get out of bed. Because it's not a cure-all like the tablets that you can go and buy in the chemist or supermarket or what have you. Not that they're cure-alls, but you know what I mean. They
stifle the symptoms, and I actually suggest that they actually prolong the period of poor health.
Completely agree. Yes. So yeah, the minute you start to feel ill, start taking something, basically something herbal, not medicinal, if that's the right word. Now, the first one I'm going to use is the quickest remedy that I know how to make. The others take a little bit of preparation, but this one you can make the night before and start taking it in the morning. And it's basically if you've got a cold and you can feel it moving onto your, especially if you can feel it moving onto your chest, you just literally take one onion, slice it up really thinly, and if you've got some garlic, crush some garlic up as well, because crushed garlic's always good. And you'll also need a small jam jar and some brown sugar. Now, I know a lot of people don't like using sugar, but it just works in this one. I use honey for everything else, but sugar on this one. You layer up the onion with the sugar, starting with the onion on the base of the jar, and then just layer it up till you've used all the onion up, put a layer of sugar on the top, put the lid on it, give it a shake, and just put it on a side in the kitchen. The sugar will dissolve through the
moisture from the onion.
Yeah. And it will draw all the active ingredients out of the onion.
I mean, first of all, we need to point out here that all of the onion family are essentially hugely beneficial antibacterials anyway.
Yes. They are.
That if you put a bacteria on a fresh onion, it dies.
Yes.
So
I mean, if you can stomach eating a raw onion, like my granddad used to do, then brilliant, do it.
And raw garlic.
Or garlic.
I mean, raw garlic is actually, if you actually choose the smaller cloves, and if you do have problems sort of swallowing tablets or something, you can quite literally honeycoat them. So just pick the smallest cloves, honeycoat them, chop the little rooty bit off at the bottom so that it doesn't catch in your throat and make you gag, chop the little pointy bit off at the top so that doesn't tickle your throat on the way down, and just put it tipped down at the back of your tongue and swallow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've done that many a time, actually, when I've had nothing else in the house.
I tend not to dose myself with it much, just simply because I don't tend to need to, but I used to use that with the dogs quite frequently. Garlic down the dogs.
Yeah.
That's if you don't have a dog that likes garlic anyway, like some of my loony bloody hounds have done in the past.
The only thing with garlic that I'd say about taking a whole one is the more you crush a garlic, the more you're releasing
Absolutely.
the chemicals that do the good. If you're taking it whole, the stomach acids are going to destroy the garlic before you've got 90% of the goodness.
Yeah.
So if you can crush it, just take a spoon. I'm going to get onto a garlic and honey mix, actually, that it keeps forever, and it's brilliant. It shouldn't keep forever because you should be taking it every day, but it does keep forever. But with this one, start just taking a couple of teaspoons of it twice a day, and it will lift all the crap that you get on your chest. You know, if you think you're going to start going down.
Okay, so what? So with the onions and the sugar end up as a kind of oniony, sugary soup in the jar.
Yes,
so
and it looks
syrup
horrible
as such.
and brown and disgusting. It absolutely stinks, so don't sniff it. I remember trying to feed it to the gnome when he was ill once. He was like, no, so I had to literally hold his nose and chuck it down his throat. But it tastes really sweet. So once you get over the smell, you know, the kids will eat it, everybody will eat it, it's great.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not one of my favourites because it's got sugar in it, but it is a quick one that you can get done within about 12 hours.
Okay, excellent. I mean, a more instant one, if you're wanting to catch the start of a cold, then the old-fashioned honey and lemon, but you're actually using fresh lemons and real honey and just a little hot water, a touch of brandy if you're of the alcoholic persuasion. Never goes too much of a miss.
Well,
I mean, let's sort of finish the remedies, and I would actually like to suggest what I have found to be an absolutely effective prevention.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
But that's more of a mind game than a remedy, and I should imagine that at this particular moment, if people are listening to this, they'll be more interested in how to ameliorate the symptoms that they already have, rather than my trick that needs to be applied at the very moment the thought crosses your mind. But
Fair enough. Well, honey. Honey to me is one of the most amazing foods out there. And I could bore you with so many facts on honey that is unbelievable.
Well,
but
please
I'm not
do.
going
Please
to.
no. Well, I would suggest that you at least elaborate a little, because I also agree that honey is a very important medicinal substance.
For a start, it's a complete natural food source. And if you mix it with some form of vitamin C and water, it's been proven that you can actually survive for months in extreme circumstances. The only reason you need the vitamin C is to stop scurvy, would you believe it? But you can live off honey and water. I wouldn't like to say indefinitely, but for as long as hopefully you need to, if anything should happen out there. The other thing is, contrary to popular belief and EU labelling, honey never ever goes off. So when you buy that jar of honey and it's been sitting at the back of the cupboard for 5 years, it might have crystallised. Give it a stir or warm it up, but there will be absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's a brilliant preservative.
And this is the reason why it's such a good medicinal substance as well. You can actually apply it directly to infected wounds.
You
and
can.
It has exactly the same properties, so you can apply it as a dressing additive. So if you're applying a dressing to a wound, if you apply honey to the dressing before you apply it to the wound, it has an antibacterial, antiviral.
It does. Yes, I was going to say it's antibacterial, it's antiviral.
Good way of preventing gangrene if you're out in the countryside. I mean,
Yes.
my mate Nick, the breatharian, actually reckons that all emergency hospital staff should carry a honey enema kit with them at all times, because he actually reckons that the applying of oxygen masks and electric shocks is probably the most dangerous thing you can do to a human body in shock.
Well, again, you're stressing it. You're stressing the body by doing that, which...
Whereas the honey would actually provide the energy that the body's in desperate need of, and in order to be able to save itself.
Yes, yeah, it's got 2 different types of sugar in it, if I remember rightly. It's got if you're feeling lethargic, or I know you've just been working hard, what have you, and you're feeling really tired, you take a spoonful of honey, you'll get that boost that you'd get from eating a chocolate bar, which obviously, I mean, to be honest, I don't know what's nicer, chocolate bar or honey. I think I'll go with honey. Mm-hmm. But then you've got the fructose sugars, which burn slowly, which then sustain the energy that you've been given. So you don't get that high from eating a bar of chocolate and then the crash.
Well, funnily enough, and this also dials into general good health, that essentially what Nick Gracie is championing is the concept that fructose is actually the primary food source of the human organism.
Well, it goes back to honey being something that you can live off in extreme circumstances,
well,
doesn't it?
and more to the point, sort of peeled fruit and fruit juices actually being the apex pinnacle foods, and that everything else is really a derivative where your body has to apply enzymes through the stomach, through the action of the stomach, in order to be able to extract the same substances, the fructoses, the lactoses, the sugars.
But if you think a long, long time ago, when we were hunter-gatherers, 90% of our diet would have been fruits, nuts, anything. We could, we would pick up the odd rabbit, or which you can't live off rabbit, but you wouldn't have got rabbit, actually. You would have got venison, but you wouldn't have had rabbit then.
Or a touch of hare, perhaps.
You would have got hare, yes, but yeah. Yeah,
just,
I forget
rabbits
was a
were
Victorian
introduced
thing.
to the Normans, weren't they?
They were, yes. Yeah, I forget. There's too much going on in this little brain of mine sometimes.
Bloody French. Remember Agincourt.
And if you think that 90% of the time we were on a fruit diet those days, fruits and herbs,
Yeah.
and we're still here, so it must have done us some good somewhere along the line.
Yeah, we did actually manage to survive without supermarkets, believe it or not, at one point in the past.
Strange concept.
I must
isn't
admit,
it?
having lived in the countryside and in attempted to live as a vegetarian off of the British countryside, the exclusion by private landowners to such large swathes of the countryside, and the industrial monoculture agriculture that we see all over the British countryside actually makes it almost impossible to live wholly off of the countryside. I know a few people that lived entirely from wild foods, and to be quite honest, it was a bit like the bush tucker in Crocodile Dundee. You can live on it, but it tastes like shit. You know what I mean? It was a bit like that, you know what I mean? They had all sort of dead animals hanging up in their gaff, and you know what I mean? The whole place was like sort of filled with sort of various wild goods, and that was all they spent all of their time doing. So, and not to live particularly well off of it. So this is also an issue that we need to replant the wild foods back into our countryside that have been removed by monoculture. I'm on a bit of a campaign to try and get everybody that's planting public trees to plant edible fruit trees.
I had this argument with my council because they've put coconut trees, palm trees down because we're the south of England, so we must be like, the Riviera, obviously. So they've put up. And I'm like, why are they not putting fruit trees, herb bushes, stuff that you can actually walk along and pick?
I am always dismayed at the thought of the level of poverty throughout the Lewisham borough, and the fact that almost every suburban back street in the Lewisham borough is lined with cherry trees, and they are all, without fail, all of them ornamental cherries, completely inedible.
Yeah,
they would make
rubbish.
you ill if you were to eat them. So you're walking through, streets of possibly very hungry people with trees lining every street that could feed those people, and instead all they're doing is feeding the starlings.
Yeah, exactly. For 3 weeks of the year, they could be feasting on cherries, and they can't. I know. It's sick, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I've got a front garden hedge that I'm slowly replanting, and it's my intention to make at least a third of the trees in the front hedge edible fruits, simply available to anybody passing on the street.
Great idea.
No,
again,
I'm an advocate of guerrilla planting as well. If anybody's got a plot of green outside their house, if they, in a public area, just go and plant a tree, stake it, make it look like the council stuck it in. They'll come round and prune it, they'll tend it, they won't know any bloody difference. Yeah, so just go down. Aldi's are a pretty good one at the minute. Aldi's are doing a lot of cheap fruit trees. They're really old tatty ones that have obviously come through some dodgy old market somewhere and have been unwatered and stuff, and they're all limp and God knows what. Perfectly living trees. Most fruit trees are really incredibly hardy. The apple tree has got to be, next to the willow, possibly one of the hardiest trees on the planet. I mean, you take a chunk of apple, drop it on the ground, come back in 5 years and there'll be a tree there. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be a root or anything, just any chunk of apple branch and it will quite happily... Oh, I think we have the return of the Wellfairy.
Oh.
Going through the extreme hello. Is that the extreme hello going on? Hello, love. Shall I mute out for a second? No, that's all right. The door's being closed. I'll tell you what, Julie. We're just on 20 past. If you'd just like to kind of rattle through the other remedy that you were wanting to.
Yeah, one of the best ones I've got is a multi-purpose cure-all. And it's using garlic because, again, garlic is antibiotic and antiviral, and honey is antiseptic. It's also incredibly easy to make, and you can use it as a daily tonic of half a teaspoon daily. But if you're starting to get a cold or feeling a bit under the weather, take half a teaspoon 3 times a day, or 6 times a day if it's really acute. You can add it to lemon and water to make a drink, or you can add it to milk for children. And if you've got infants, you can always rub a little bit of it on the soles of their feet. I wouldn't suggest feeding it to them, but yeah, it will still be absorbed through their feet. And literally, you take 1 large bulb of garlic and a pound of honey. You can buy honey quite cheaply now. It's not overly expensive. And a mortar and pestle. Skim the garlic and crush it. Put it in the mortar and pound it until basically it's semi-transparent and you've released all the nice, good chemicals that will do you the world of good in it. Then just add about 2 tablespoons of honey and continue to pound it. Keep keep crushing it, as I say, just keep mixing it to release the active ingredients. And once it's transparent, you can mix in the rest of the honey. Now, if you don't have a huge pestle and mortar like mine isn't, you can make up as much as you can in that, pour it in the jar, and then literally just pour in the rest of the honey and stir it in. Label it, because otherwise you're like, oh, what's that in the cupboard? And then just, keep it in the cupboard.
And use it as a medicine.
Use it as a medicine. Again, it's got the honey in it, it's got the garlic in it, it doesn't taste vile. And you can use it on children. You know, when children get that cold and I hear so many mums are like, I don't know what to do, because you can't give them medicines. But if you can use a little bit of that on the soles of their feet, it'll help with their immune system without doing them any damage because they've taken it.
Yeah, no, that would be a completely
internally.
safe way to apply anything that was essentially largely non-toxic anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And the other one, which we touched on earlier, was fresh honey and lemon. But I don't know about you, if I go out and buy a bag of lemons, there's always one left and I never know what to do with it unless I'm making tea. So I slice it up, chuck in some crushed ginger, and again, pour some honey over it, bung a lid on it, and chuck it in the back of the fridge. And when you do start to feel a cold coming on, you can pull out a couple of slices of the lemon into a mug with some of the honey, top it up with hot water, and you've got a lovely honey and lemon drink.
Okay.
Okay.
I would suggest that by preference with vitamin C, with anything that you're trying to get vitamin C out, the reason why you always prefer fresh to any other medium is simply because vitamin C has got an alarming rate of oxidisation and breakdown and decay, and putting it in the freezer will slow that rate of decay, but it certainly won't stop it.
No, it won't, but also added with the honey that's a preservative.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. But I think the vitamin C molecule is essentially unstable, and this is why we need it repeated in our diet, which is why we don't really accumulate it as adults. It's something that we pass through our bodies quite quickly, and it also decays naturally quite quickly. Okay, well, I'd like to intercede here with my little trick. Well, just not to wind any poor soul up that's currently suffering from a cold, but I haven't had a cough or a cold or any illness other than physical illness, physical injury, for over 3 years now, since I discovered this technique. And I realised that what actually gives you the cold is the very thought, oh my God, I'm coming down with a cold. I mean, is that not the very words that go through your mind when you feel that tickle at the back of your throat?
And then the next morning you wake up and you feel like crap.
Precisely. I catch that thought in mid-thought. I do not let that thought utter itself. Once you have let it utter itself, it has been uttered, even if it be by your subconscious mind. You have to catch it in mid-thought and stop it in its tracks. If need be, acknowledging the part of your body that is indicating some sort of ingress of germs, and be thankful for its very rapid and effective immune response, and thank you for warning me of this. Now go back to sleep.
Okay.
I mean, this is my philosophy about the human immune system. Is essentially we are in a dialogue with our bodies, and the only problem with this is that it's our immune system that's the only one that ever does any of the talking. Our immune system tells us all sorts of things. It gives us aches and pains, it gives us headaches, it gives us fevers, it gives us chills, but we very rarely talk back.
True.
So I have entered into a dialogue with my body, and at first it feels very peculiar talking to your body, because it doesn't speak back in English. So it's this very kind of, it's a bit like talking to your dog about Shakespeare. when you first start. But as soon as you begin to get the responses from your body as if it heard what you said, you suddenly realise that this practice isn't as silly as it first appeared, and may in fact save you from that misery of, a week or 5 days laid up in bed with a snotty head and feeling awful, just simply because you didn't catch that thought and you didn't respond to your body's very well phrased message telling you that you're in trouble and do something.
No, that's fair enough. I mean, I do say that too. I've got a friend at the moment and she's pregnant and she's like, oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. I said, what does your body tell you? I said, forget the books.
You're pregnant, not ill.
What does your body tell you? Yeah, exactly. And I said, if it says that you want cheese and Marmite, have cheese and Marmite. It's not going to do you any harm. Yes, it is high in fat and you should be on a low-fat diet. Just don't go mad on it, you know. But listen to your body all the time. So, yeah, I'll agree with that one.
Okay, let's just... we're coming up for the half hour. I don't want to give the lads, and I think Elaine may be handy somewhere here. But I just wanted to touch on the subject of dog well-being as well. And we were just mentioning at the top of the show there that I'd managed to get a puppy through parvovirus.
I want to know you
which
did that.
is essentially considered by vets to be undoable. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Vets basically take a dog that's presented with parvo and they give them injections which essentially perks the dog up for about 4 days and they then keel over dead on the 5th day.
Yes.
That's the entire treatment of distemper and parvo through the veterinary service is largely down to this single jab. And I don't know of any owner whose dog has dropped down dead who has reported that fact back to the vets.
No.
So I would suggest that the vets are essentially acting in ignorance rather than neglect. And, you know what I mean, if the dog recovers after having the jab, they associate that recovery to the jab and then don't associate the then later death equally to the jab. But
yeah.
I was very fortunate that I actually met a wise woman while I was travelling, an older lady who had been around when myxomatosis was introduced to the country's rabbit population just after the Second World War because of the food crisis. And this was a very well publicised affair developed by Porton Down, the British Chemical Weapons Laboratory, and released with the public's knowledge and, I would assume, consent to cut down the rabbit population that was decimating British crops at the time. What most people don't realise is that concurrent to that story was also the discovery of the new dog disease parvovirus. It was supposedly discovered, and then the miracle cure vaccination discovered, which is the one that you're currently all giving to your dogs, within a week of each other. Mm-hmm. So parvovirus was isolated 1 week and a vaccination was developed and available at your vets the following week. Okay, I don't know any more about it than that, and that was all that she knew, but that to me does not sound like standard virology and the time that it takes to develop an effective treatment against a newfound virus. So what I'm suggesting is that parvovirus is essentially the dog version of myxomatosis. It was most likely developed by Portland Down. It was introduced to the feral dog population in this country after the Second World War because of the number of people that had been bombed out of their homes, had been evacuated from the town centres and had had to leave their animals behind, had left the country with essentially a plague of dog packs. And so they propagandised the mainstream media with the countrywide threat of this newfound dog disease, and then problem reaction solution offered the entire country the ability for their beloved pets to escape this terrible tragedy if they all marched along to the veterinary surgeon and accepted the parvovirus inoculations that are still being given to our dogs to this day.
Yeah, well, I don't give my dogs vaccinations.
No, I haven't vaccinated any of my dogs for over 20 years now.
Yeah.
And had none of them come down with the disease. And in fact, the disease was largely, every time I saw it in an uninoculated group of dogs, it was usually because a puppy that had just had its vaccinations was allowed to mix with the unvaccinated animals. So it would appear that the virus was actually being transmitted to the dog population through the vaccination, through the faeces of the animal that had been vaccinated supposedly against it. Anyway, so my story of essentially this, fortunately discovering this woman who was beautiful and wise, and had a copy of Culpeper's Herbalist, and was just fantastic, and I love her, and I wish I could remember her name. Lovely old travelling lady. She must have been in her late 50s and still on the road and living in her wagon and all the rest of it. And having had the good fortune to meet her, a very short time later, I acquired a puppy that then went on to develop parvo within about 3 days of taking him off of this particular site. And because of the knowledge that she'd imparted on me about the way that the distemper and parvo virus attack the dog's internal organs, and that it's actually because the domesticated dog is essentially a large puppy. It never really fully matures. It remains in what would be a puppy state for a wolf or a wild dog. And so they're very easily trained, and we train them by feeding them. And essentially, with all cases of distemper and parvo, we feed our dogs to death. Because the dogs are programmed that the dog bowl goes down, they put their heads in it, they eat the contents. They will continue to do that even against their body's own internal messaging, and will repeatedly eat food when it's actually the food that's killing them, and what they need is putting on an absolute starvation diet. And funnily enough, honey and water. Mm-hmm. So you make up a weak honey and water dilution, and you apply that honey and water dilution every 20 minutes, 24 hours a day. You pinch the fur on the back of the neck and release, and according to the elasticity of the skin on the back of the neck, you're able to determine the level of dehydration in the dog and adjust the amount of honey and water that you're attempting to get down them in each of these 20-minute sessions. You can, doing that, you can withdraw all food for up to 5 weeks. Okay, this took me 3 months to achieve in total, to get this dog completely through it, but I would essentially be able to go for up to a month at a time without any solid food going past this dog. And when it was getting to a state where she was beginning to suffer from muscle wastage, it would be boiled fish, boiled rice, boiled chicken, and that was about it, and in very, very small quantities, and again, applied with lots of honey and water. And 3 months later, the dog recovered and was more or less uninjured. Another thing is that room temperature air actually burns the lungs of a dog with distemper or parvo. So you essentially have to have your windows and your doors flung wide open, or keep the dog outside throughout the whole period, even if it's winter.
Okay.
So that was, and it was a winter that I did it, and I kept the dog indoors, so I was living essentially outdoors for the whole of the 3 months that I was. God, yeah. It really is a labour of love, but if you're thinking that the vet is going to cure your dog, I wouldn't even recommend taking the dog to a vet for distemper. Distemper is like a bad case of the flu, and your dog is more than likely going to survive it if it's in reasonable health anyway and has no other health issues. Parvo is a slightly different issue. It kills the majority of dogs that contract it, and there is virtually nothing that your vet is actually going to be able to do, in my opinion at least, to save the dog once it has got parvo. So I would recommend, following my procedure. If you love the animal, it will take a really incredible amount of dedication, but it can be done. Parvo is not a dog.
Shot, hasn't it,
yeah,
at the end
parvo
of the day.
is not an absolute killer of dogs. Bearing in mind, I talked to somebody who has been party to the euthanising of over 200 puppies on one occasion due to parvo virus setting into a whole litter of pups. So, pyres of puppy corpses.
Oh, that's horrible.
So it's very close to my heart, this particular little subject.
I'm rather interested in the whole idea that the MIC-C vaccination came out at the same time of the parvos. And it was on Portman Down, which isn't that far from us. We go camping once a year in the Purbicks. And every 4 years, we end up with MIC-C rabbits just hanging around, the field or the campsite. Mm-hmm. And we have 2 dogs, not our 2, but another 2 dogs. They're Northern Inuits. They're straight in there, picking up the rabbits. And they, funnily enough, didn't get ill. But all the other dogs that were in the area with them all ended up going down with a really, really bad sickness and diarrhoea for 48 hours.
Okay, well, I know while we were on the road, we wouldn't let any of our dogs eat mixy rabbits. We'd often be invited in to let our dogs, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
move.
well, I wasn't happy with her allowing. She said, "Oh, but they're catching them. It's fine." I said, "No, it's not. It's a man-made road. You shouldn't be allowing it."
Yeah, no, it's the animal interactions as well. I don't know if you remember all of the seals dying in Norway because of that was dog distemper.
Yes, it was, wasn't it?
So,
yes.
And they put that down to a dead animal finding its way into the sea around the areas where the seals were lying and essentially infecting the seal population that way.
Yeah, because like you say, dogs are not fussy what they eat at the end of the day, half-rotting food, they meat, they've not got... Well, they're scavengers. And they'll do it. But yeah, I think all of the dogs, bar about 3 or 4 that didn't leave the vans or the tents, all went down with this 48-hour stomach bug. And it was nasty. Again, I didn't feed mine. I starved them for 48 hours. Just let them have water.
And this is actually something that it's actually really good for your dog's health to do as well, to give your dogs reasonable periods of fasting on occasions. The Western thing of, oh, my dog can't possibly go without dinner tonight. My God, you're killing your dogs quicker than you could possibly save them. That's the reason my pedigrees generally only last 12 years. It's nothing at all to do with the genetics. It's all to do with the treatment.
Yeah, well, as you know, I want to do a chat on dog food, because at the end of the day, processed dog food, I personally think, is killing your dog. Dogs used to last 20, 25 years, obviously depending on the size, and I think the average lifespan for a dog now is about 15. Mm-hmm. And most of that is down to processed dog food.
Yeah, well, nearly all of my dogs have lasted into their late teens. I think the last one may have been 21, but I kind of lost count on him. He was an old fucker, but he was sprightly, you know what I mean? Fit till the day he died.
Yeah.
And I think he actually died from an injury that he'd sustained when he was a puppy, because he appeared to die of some sort of a brain, a sort of stroke of some sort.
Oh, how bizarre.
And he'd had a hideous car injury when he was about 18 months, and the vet seemed to think that it was most likely caused by that. Just returning in his older years, but he was sprightly, he was out the day before and bouncing around and just died overnight, so...
Yeah.
Fit and healthy, good old boy he was. And my mate last night, actually, we were talking about him last night, my mate reckoned that he was like a human in a dog suit.
Yes, I've got one of those. The other one's
a very
definitely
good
a dog,
description of Herman.
but yes, I've got a human right here. If she had opposable thumbs, we'd be in trouble, let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. The puppies keep trying to get onto the laptop whenever we're using it upstairs. So they're thinking about starting Wolf Book.
Definitely, brilliant idea.
That was Social Network. All right. Well, we better give some room for the lads, and I'm going to see if I can get Wellfair to the airwaves here. I know she's just come back in for some hideous traffic out on the wonderful streets of London. Nick may be on a wind up here, but he posted this. Was it your anniversary yesterday?
It was, yes.
Well, I think this may be part of your anniversary celebrations. You're welcome to join in with this last section if you've got anything to put in, and I'll see if I can get Wellfair to the mic while we're at it. We'll just have this and a tune and be back in 5.
Hi, I'm John C. Parkin, and I'm here to talk about my book.
Sorry, John. Here we go again, everybody. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm John C. Parkin, and I'm here to talk about my book.
So everybody, reset. In 3, 2, 1.
Hi, I'm John Fuck it. Look, I did a video to explain the idea. Why don't we just show the fricking video? Yeah?
The world is in a pretty terrible state. Things are getting very bad indeed. Nobody on this earth is immune. There's only one thing for it. Say, fuck it. Take it easy, relax, let go. That's what we've been doing for thousands of years. Even when things are pretty shitty, we say fuck it and relax. It's our way. A way to find peace, whatever's happening in a crappy world. A spiritual way.
the idea, and that's the book. I came to this idea a few years ago. I've been practicing and studying Eastern philosophy and spirituality for about 20 years, and I realised that something I was saying, yes, fuck it, was actually doing a similar thing to many of those things I'd learned. I.e., when I said fuck it to something that was bugging me, that was causing me pain, I was relaxing, I was letting go, I was releasing tension, I was going with the flow, I was releasing attachment. And these are all Eastern spiritual ideas. The great thing was, though, that it didn't require any mystical teaching, any long meditation practice, any chanting, or any praying, or any eating beans. It just required saying the simple phrase, fuck it, and that was doing the trick. So I started teaching this idea, fuck it, as a spiritual way at our retreat centre in Italy, The Hill That Breathes. I've taken something that's there right in the heart of our modern culture, this profane phrase, and it allows people to relax into the very stresses and strains of this modern culture that we live in. So it's worked for me, it's working for thousands of people around the world, and I hope it works for you. If not, fuck it. Go back to chanting and eating beans. Thank you. Fuck!
And we're back with welfare.org.uk and the Wellfair All-Star team. I'm afraid we don't have Wellfairy back on the air today. I'm afraid she's had just one too many hours stuck in London traffic here. I know that you people out in the countryside are probably suffering from the deluge that we're under at the minute, but London just comes to a complete gridlock in the slightest drizzle. So any efforts to actually move anywhere by any sort of transport at the moment are just currently almost impossible to undertake. We've both spent kind of combined about 12 hours in traffic in the last 3 days. So anyway, we have the Welfare All-Stars, so I know you were wanting to come back with a few extra bits from your news items and some of the things that we've been dealing with in the welfare group with some of the people that have contacted us this week, lads.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to go into... well, I don't think I'm going to have really enough time, Jack, to go into any details about the next subject. I was going to talk about contract law, some of the definitions of the words in contract law when it comes to people's experiences in dealing with things like benefits and JSA, those kind of things.
Okay, well, if you could do a kind of brief outline of what you were, the lines along your...
Well, I'll tell you what, there's always next week. I'm going to a bit more detail about it, but what I'm going to do is, because I've got to go and do my little signing tomorrow, I'm going to put some of this to the test personally, so I can see how, let's say, how they react. See what happens. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And see how it works, because basically, pretty much I'm going to start using specific words, legal terms, and see how they, like I say, react. So, such as words like consent, and there's other terms like undue influence and duress. Because there was a situation when I originally signed, I'm sure I specifically remember that. The lady in front of me basically pretty much said, well, if you don't sign this, I can't let you sign. Which I consider to be quite, a bit of a threat, really.
Yeah, that's pretty much the concept of duress, isn't it?
Exactly, and just quickly, I mean, the definition of a threat, which is quite a big one here, because I think people will really get a good idea now. There's from this site. It's called duhaime.org. It's duhaime.org. And according to the site, the legal definition of threat is a menace designed to intimidate the person on whom it is directed to take some action, and listen for this, and which carries with it some sanction if not performed. Right? And that's very interesting from my point of view, considering that the sanctions being thrown all over the place.
Well, and they actually even use the word sanction in their actions. Exactly,
and it's legally connected with the word threat. I mean, even lawfully connected. I mean, it's just, it's like it's really sort of in your face. I mean, undue influence, for instance. I mean, that definition is the unconscientious use of one person or her power over another in order to induce the other to compromise a property right. But even that, I mean, it's still just like, it's about a power and imbalance. So there you are, you're in a situation and, you need to go somewhere, you're entitled to something. And then they are in a position of power saying, well, you can't do this, you can't do that unless you do this. It's all really unlawful. It's completely, as far as I can see, what they're doing. They really can't do it, And I'm just going through this whole contract law and I'm just scratching my head and I'm thinking, well, yeah, I mean, they just, they really are just,
making it up as they go along.
Oh yeah, and they can't do it. They can't frame.
Okay, well let's
sign any agreement whatsoever.
Hopefully
so
we'll be able. We'll be able to work in the practical element of your theory here into next week's show then, and give a more in-depth.
Well, I will. Yeah, I've got to do
covering the subject.
Get my swatting on it, and I'm going to go in at the moment.
Okay. Well, we are up against time. I don't want to delay our fabulous Dr. Rock from coming on at 6. So. Nick, you had something that you've been working with somebody on about the access to the ATOS centres that was mentioned in the pod that we played through there?
Yeah, I think we've had quite a response on that I think we have a gentleman who's just point blank refused to go to the assessment, and I just dropped this in. I think he's currently at the stage he's missed his medical, and I think they were actually at the point of, well, give us good reasons why not, or we're going to stop your money. And I think just at that moment I said, well, check this list. They're breaking their own disability access rules with these medical centres, and I think he's thrown that in. He seems to be getting positive results, and it doesn't work for every place, but I think it's a good option to take on that. I mean,
excellent.
I know
so we're having positive feedback on that. Okay, well, I'm sorry we're so short on time for this section. Just a couple of other little welfare.org.uk victories this week. The compliance interview that we were discussing in an earlier show, the person that was facing the compliance interview sailed it, had no problems, that the advice stuck, that all of your hard work in looking up the various regs and what they were and weren't able to do during that compliance interview entirely played out true, and as a result she's no longer under investigation. So big up the welfare team on that one. And I think if you'd just all like to say your goodbyes, and I'll wind out with a quick tune.
Bye, peeps.
Yeah, bye, folks.
You there, Juliet? Say goodbye. We got a wild swan in the house.
Hang on, she's just got one mate on mute.
Bye, everybody.
And we'll see you horrible lot next week. And thanks so much for bailing me out on this show today as well, folks. I think you'll find it's been a good one. So this has been the Welfare All-Stars team. That's Nick, Wild Swan and Neo in place for Welfare, who's been away this week at the dentist's. And we'll be back on this time, same place, same channel next week with more benefits and welfare advice. Okay, see you next week.
And they've dragged him away by the hair. Curl up from the bottom to the top, and you tell me it's the law. Davey's out on 2 weeks bail, he's down the town to score. All the door falls in, and he's smitten to the chin, and they've busted every floor. Curl up from the bottom to the top, you tell me it's the law. With his lass, there's a brick through the pane, he's out in the lane with the bayeks in the glass. Up from the bottom to the top, you tell me it's the law. The trial comes on a Monday morning, baby's in the dock. He can't stop his tears, he gets 2 years, you can't turn back the clock. Up from the bottom to the top, you tell me it's the law. banging his head on the wall. So he's tied his pants to the prison bars, and he's home.